I know exactly what they want. I know exactly what they want. Just be patient. My name is my name, power and glory. I never change. Stand on loyalty, remain the same. Say what you mean, speak on my name. You go to war with me. We move the same. You think that it's for me? Running the game, kicking the door with me. All through the pain, the snow, the rain, the ups and downs. My name did more for me. Y'all keep the fame. I want the glory. Been that nigga. Bitches never ignored me. Rich in spirit, little bitch can't afford me. They want static, fix it with a 4G. Red beam on it. You think I'm recording? Kicking front doors. You try to backdoor me. We are not a gang, bitch. We are army. Book a den. You know I don't tell stories. Keep it 100 in enlightenment. You niggas fake baby K name Adonis. Mini Drake clip curl, but somehow I can shoot it straight. Insta clip, I can shoot for a minute straight. Turn this to the Super Bowl if I need to. I can hit your chief up with an eagle. Set you up on the score, but they lied to you. Why you letting them niggas mislead you? My name is my name, power and glory. I never change. Stand on loyalty, remain the same. Say what you mean, speak on my name. You go to war with me. We move the same. You think that it's for me? Running the game, kicking the door with me. All through the pain, the snow, the rain, the ups and downs. My name did more for me. My name is my name, power and glory. I never change. Stand on loyalty, remain the same. Say what you mean, speak on my name. You go to war with me. We move the same. You think that it's for me? Running the game, kicking the door with me. All through the pain, the snow, the rain, the ups and downs. My name did more for me. You won't see it coming. I move like a crook, a thief in the night. So watch what you put. My aim precise. These bullets 12 inches long. A block away, I could take off the foot. Ask me no questions if you know my stance. Bitch, I'm the man, so thanks in advance. They mean a rifle on top of a tripod. If they ever tell you I was taking a stand, they got run up on me, but I'm way too advanced. Spinning with choppers, turn you into a fan. Can show you the steps, but won't hold your hands. They thought they could stop me, it ain't go as planned. How I get this far? Cause I took a chance. Really got ranked, keeping it a band. This ain't what you think, better think again. This ain't what you think, you better think again. My name is my name, power and glory. I never change. Stand on loyalty, remain the same. Say what you mean, speak on my name. You go to war with me. We move the same. You think that it's for me? Running the game, kicking the door with me. All through the pain, the snow, the rain, the ups and downs. My name did more for me. My name is my name, power and glory. I never change. Stand on loyalty, remain the same. Say what you mean, speak on my name. You go to war with me. We move the same. You think that it's for me? Running the game, kicking the door with me. All through the pain, the snow, the rain, the ups and downs. My name did more for me. Went to war with the real, the fake, the snake, the mobsters. Blame it on y'all. Y'all created this monster. Went to war with the real, the fake, the snake, the mobsters. Blame it on y'all. Y'all created this monster. Went to war with the real, the fake, the snake, the mobsters. Blame it on y'all. Y'all created this monster. Went to war with the real, the fake, the snake, the mobsters. Blame it on y'all. Y'all created this monster.
All right, Israel Shalom. Yabashim Yashab Thumb to the brothers. Yahweh Shamal Thumb Bashim Yahweh to the sisters. I'm Priest Officer Parag holding down the Wednesday law class for the ISUBK coming out of Arizona. If you're watching online, at the very bottom of the screen, we got our class location, 12416 North 28th Drive. We're in suite number 4, right off of the corner of 28th Drive and Cactus. If you're in the Phoenix area, make sure you step out with us. We got classes every Tuesday through Friday at 7 p.m. And every Saturday, we hold our Sabbath service at 11 a.m. All right, so we're going to jump right on into it today. If you're watching online, you can see that today's title for today's class is Refutations to Replacement Theology. All right, Refutations to Replacement Theology. So first and foremost, replacement theology, we're going to understand it. I'll pull up the definition. But replacement theology is, in essence, God no longer only, I'll put it to you like this. God no longer only loves and chooses one set of people. Now, the church, whether you're an Israelite or not, you now become a spiritual Israelite. If y'all have ever heard that come out of the Christian church before, we'll read the definition. I'll pull it up on the screen. Now, replacement theology is also known sometimes as suppressionism. And we're going to read it. Put it up here for y'all so you can see it. Now, this is Wikipedia, of course, but this is a pretty accurate depiction or description of, let me see if I can get this on the full screen. Yeah, there we go. This is a pretty accurate description of what replacement theology is. So now if we read it here, it says, supersessionism, also called replacement theology and fulfillment theology by its proponents, is the Christian doctrine that the Christian church has superseded the Jewish people, or really the Israelites, assuming their role as the Most High's covenanted people, thus asserting that the new covenant through Christ has superseded or replaced the Mosaic covenant, or what we call the Old Covenant. Supersessionists also hold that the universal church has become God's true Israel. Remember how I was saying they become spiritual Israelites? And so Christians, whether Jew or Gentile, these are physical Gentiles, people that are not Israelites, are the people of God. All right. That's what replacement theology is. Now, once again, we hear this a lot. Us being Hebrew Israelites, we battle Christians all the time. One of the main things that we battle Christians when it comes to this Bible is who can be saved. And that's a major proponent of the Bible. A major component of the Bible, right? The Bible is very centered on the Most High choosing a group of people and making them the ruling class over the entire earth. Like as we see in Deuteronomy, the 7th chapter, making them a special people above all the other nations. That's a consistent theme throughout the Bible. All right. What Christians have done with supersessionism, or what we call replacement theology, is they have now made it. They have a way of getting around the fact that only Israel can be saved by saying that, well, other nations can become Israelites, right? That's that replacement part. That's why they call it replacement theology, because now the true Israelites, it doesn't matter if you're a physical descendant of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob anymore. What they're saying is that now you can spiritually become the seed of Jacob, which we understand according to the scriptures that that's just false. It's untrue. You cannot spiritually become another nation or another ethnicity. You are what you are. It's embedded into your DNA. Your forefathers are who they are. I could never say that I'm spiritually a Moabite. I cannot spiritually become a Midianite. I can't become another ethnicity. Now, if we take that into to today's terms, if you are a black man in America, you cannot say I'm spiritually a white man because you are who you are. That's in your DNA. That's who you are. It's what everything that you are is what you are, and there's nothing you can do about it. That's just the truth. So now, what we're going to do tonight is we're going to go through the scriptures, and we're going to refute this idea of replacement theology, because, of course, the scriptures tell us that we have to cast down the strongholds especially that Christianity has placed upon our people, that the powers that be have placed upon our people. That's a stronghold, man. It's a strong, like that idea of Christianity, the doctrine that comes along with it, is a stronghold over our people's minds. And it's something that must be done about it, which is, of course, why we pick up this Bible and we read it for what it says, and we teach it according to what's written down, according to what thus saith the Lord. So we're going to get some scriptures now. Let me see something real quick. I'm going to pull it up on the screen so that way all of these scriptures that we're going to pull, you'll be able to see on the screen. The first point that we're going to attack in supersessionism or replacement theology is the idea of that new covenant, meaning that now other nations can come into the fold. Because that's, of course, what we just read in that definition was that this ideology assumes the position that other nations can now become spiritual Israel and be saved under the so-called new covenant, right? Well, let's go to what the scriptures say about the new covenant. That's the first place we're going to go, and we got a lot of points to attack, but we're going to do them one by one. So we're going to go to Jeremiah, the 31st chapter, to begin with, right? Pull it up on the screen. All right. So we're going to be in Jeremiah, the 31st chapter, and this is where you find the difference between the old covenant and the new covenant. And it outlines everything that you need to know. All right. So Jeremiah 31:31 says, "Behold, the days come, saith the Most High, that I will make a new covenant with the house of Israel and with the house of Judah." That's what y'all got to pay attention to first and foremost. You have to understand that the new covenant doesn't embody anybody other than the group of people that the Lord has always chosen, right? Real quick, we're going to come back to this, right? But let's go to Deuteronomy, the 7th chapter real quick. We're going to go back to the beginning of this thing, right? Deuteronomy 7 and let's do 7 and 6, right? This is talking about the children of Israel. It says, "For thou art an holy people unto the Most High thy God. The Most High thy God hath chosen thee to be a special people unto himself, above all people that are upon the face of the earth." We see that since the Most High chose the children of Israel, through thick and thin, this is the truth about the way that the Most High feels about the children of Israel. He feels and has made us to be a separate people unto himself, and he chose us to be special unto him and to be above all the other nations that are upon the face of the earth. That's the first thing we have to understand. And that's why what's being said here is so important, because now when we go back to Jeremiah, the 31st chapter, we find that just like Malachi, the 3rd chapter says, the Most High doesn't change, right? And from Deuteronomy, the 7th chapter, all the way to the time of the Babylonian captivity, which is where Jeremiah is delivering these prophecies, the Lord has not changed. And real quick, since I quoted it, we'll just go there real quick. Malachi 3 and 6, right? Malachi 3 and 6 here says, "For I am the Most High, I change not." So the Most High doesn't change. He's been the same always and forever. When he chose the children of Israel, that was it. There was no changing that. And he goes on to say, "Therefore, ye sons of Jacob are not consumed." Now, ye sons of Jacob are talking about the children of Israel. This is a physical descendancy we're talking about. We're not talking, there is no mention in anywhere in the Bible of a spiritual Israelite, meaning that you are another nation of people and you get to convert to so-called Judaism and follow the Most High God, and now you become an Israelite. That is nowhere mentioned in the Bible. So now let's continue to read, right? We're going to continue to read, because remember, one of the main points of replacement theology is the fact that, according to these Christians that have come up with this ideology, the new covenant embodies all nations of people that decide to take hold unto the Most High. But we're going to, of course, continue to read on. It says, verse 32 says, "Not according to the covenant that I made with their fathers." Now remember, this is talking about the same. Remember, we read it earlier, the old covenant that the Most High made with Abraham down to Isaac and Jacob, that his children, Jacob's children, the 12 tribes of Israel, would be as the sands of the sea, and they would be the Lord's chosen and holy people. All right. But now here we are in the 32nd verse of the 31st chapter of Jeremiah, and it says, "Not according to the covenant that I made with their fathers in the day that I took them by the hand to bring them out of the land of Egypt." Remember, when you go into Exodus, the 20th chapter, you find that the Most High had made a covenant with the children of Israel with what's called that Mosaic law. We read about that in the definition of replacement theology as well, right? But now here we see this is going to be a different covenant. This is why it's called the new covenant, right? Because it's not according to the same covenant that the Most High made with our forefathers. It goes on to say, "Which my covenant they break, although I was an husband to them, saith the Most High. But this," verse 33, "but this shall be the covenant that I will make with the house of Israel." So this is what's extremely important. When we're talking about this, we have to understand that everything in the Bible has context, everything. So when you read these things, you have to read them within the context that they're written. So remember, in Jeremiah, the 31st chapter, this is the Most High delivering a prophecy that says that while the children of Israel are in captivity under the Babylonians for breaking the covenant, the Most High delivers this prophecy and says, I'm trashing that old covenant because y'all broke it. A covenant is a contract. All right. Let's understand that first and foremost. A covenant is a contract where there's two or more parties involved. All right. The Most High and the children of Israel in this case. All right. The Most High, you can find this contract. A lot of the things that you find in this contract, you go to Deuteronomy, the 28th chapter, is why I always point to. Because if we keep the Most High's laws, statutes, and commandments as the children of Israel, then we will be set on high above all the nations. The other nations will have to borrow to us, and we'll have to lend to them because we'll be the ones in a position of authority. But if we break the covenant and we don't keep the laws, statutes, and commandments that the Most High has prescribed unto us, then we're going to be the ones wanting and needing of all things. We'll have to go to our oppressor for clothing, for food, for water. We'll be the least of all nations instead of the great because we broke the commandments. And that was the covenant that the Most High gave to us. So we broke it. All right. And once we broke those commandments and broke that covenant, the Most High sent us into all of the captivities because that was part of the agreement. If we broke that covenant, we was going to have to go into captivity. All right. So while we're in the captivity under the Babylonians, the Most High delivers this prophecy to Jeremiah to tell us that the Lord is going to establish a new covenant with the same people he established the first covenant with. I'll prove that. Let's go to Hebrews, the 8th chapter. All right. The same people that he made that first covenant with, he's going to make the second covenant with. There's no new people being involved here. That's what you got to understand. When you're trying to refute this idea of replacement theology, you have to understand that the Bible never mentions the things that replacement theologists believe in. They have to come to that conclusion. Like they have to try to make that point out of thin air because it doesn't come from the Bible. So they have to try to come to that conclusion somehow. Because in their mind, there's no way that the all-loving and all-great God, after all this time, still only chooses one group of people. They just can't wrap their head around it. But we talked about that a little bit yesterday. That's the witchcraft of Christianity. And that's where that cognitive dissonance starts to come into play. Because now there is no way that this all-loving, all-merciful God loves one group of people only and doesn't deal with any other group of people. So they have to try to find a way to justify it. But once again, let's continue to prove this thing, man. So we're going to go to Hebrews, the 8th chapter. Let me see. We could probably actually skip it. We'll go to the 9th chapter because what in Hebrews, the 8th chapter, I'll pull it up so y'all can see it on the screen. It just goes back to this is Paul writing this, and he's just quoting what we just read in Jeremiah, the 31st chapter, right? So it's just repeating and quoting that prophecy that the Most High was going to create that new covenant with the house of Israel and with the house of Judah, just to really further drill in that point that, you know, the Most High is only dealing with the children of Israel, and that's what this covenant is for. Even when you go into the so-called New Testament, you find that Paul didn't find a need to change the way that it was written. He wrote it exactly the same way. When I will make a new covenant with the house of Israel and with the house of Judah. All right. But let's go to Hebrews 9 real quick. That's where I really want to go, because we're going to go to 9 and 15. And Paul is going to explain this. And this is going to be the dagger. It's going to put all of the holes in their argument of replacement theology. So Hebrews, the 9th chapter and the 15th verse says, and for this cause, he, talking about Christ, is the mediator of the New Testament, that by means of death, for the redemption of the transgressions that were under the first testament. understand that the New Testament or the New Covenant is only applying to the same people that were under the First Testament. And so you would have to ask your fellow, your Christian brother, you would have to ask him, well, who was under the First Testament? Who was under the First Covenant? Everybody that has any common sense at all and any biblical integrity will tell you that the Old Covenant was just for the house of Israel, was just for physical bloodline descendants of Jacob. Okay? And so if you couple that understanding and that truth with Hebrews, the 9th chapter and the 15th verse, Christ only died to usher in the New Testament or New Covenant for the redemption of the transgressions for the same people that were under the First Testament. And so now you have to understand this, because it's plain upon tables, it's right here in front of your face. You have to understand this as the New Covenant is still only for the children of Israel, physical bloodline descendants of Israel. All right, that's extremely important. So now that we have that understanding, we're gonna get off of that topic of the New Covenant. That's destroyed in 3 precepts. Okay, and that's one of the main things when your Christian will talk about replacement theology or supersessionism. That's one of the main things that they'll bring up. Well, under the New Covenant, all nations can come in. Well, that's just not true. We just read that. The New Covenant is only for those that were under the First. So that's it. So now we're going to continue on, right? We're going to go into Acts, the book of Acts. Because now there's a few other things that that people that believe in that ideology will bring up. All right. And we'll address those. So that way this class can be well-rounded with all of the refutation that you'll need to refute the replacement theology ideal. All right. Just pulling it up so y'all can see it on the screen. So let me see. So login. All right. Just trying to pull up the scripture. All right, so I'm going to pull it up. This is Acts the 13th chapter. We're going to read the 26th verse. This is Paul addressing the children of Israel. And we're going to find something. Remember, Paul, he describes himself as the apostle to the Gentiles. All right. And many Christians will agree with that, of course, and they'll say that Paul was the apostle that was sent out to the other nations, right? You had some apostles, people like Peter and things like that, that went out strictly just for the Israelites, but then they'll say that Paul went out to the other nations. And the reason why is because of that term Gentile, which we'll break down shortly. But the same man that calls himself an apostle to the Gentiles makes this statement. All right. Acts 13 and 26 says, men and brethren, children of the stock of Abraham. Now, the children of the stock of Abraham is talking about the children of Israel. All right. We all understand, if you have any sort of biblical understanding at all, the chosen people of the Bible, whether you believe it's still that way or not, we all know that the chosen people of the Bible are the children of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So that's who Paul is referring to. He said, children of the stock of Abraham. And whosoever among you feareth God, to you is the word of this salvation sent. So Paul is specifically talking to Israelites, and he's saying that whoever is among you is this word, to you is this word of salvation sent. The word of salvation is only sent to the children of Israel. Now, I'm bringing this up first because I want to address the point that so many people make about Paul, saying that Paul was an apostle to the Gentiles, and that means that he was only speaking to people of the other nations. We're gonna go into some of Paul's letters, and we're gonna read some things that he says, because if Paul is just the apostle to the Gentiles, then that would mean that his ministry is to the people of the other nations, according to the Christian faith, right? But that's just not true. The term Gentile, just so you can understand, the term Gentile, it just translates to nation. That's it, nation. Now, the term nation biblically is a little different than what you would than what you could understand it as today. All right. But this, just to make it clear, Paul calls himself a Roman by citizenship. We can read that. But also in Romans, the 11th chapter, Paul says that I believe it's in the 11th, no, I believe it's in the 10th chapter of Romans. Paul calls himself a Benjamite, an Israelite from the tribe of Benjamin. So he is a Roman by citizenship, but he is a Benjamite or an Israelite by nationality, because biblically your nationality is not just where you have a citizenship at. It's your ethnicity. It's who you descend from, where your bloodline comes from. All right. So that term Gentile, when Paul says that he's the apostle to the Gentiles, that term is used several times in the New Testament to describe Jews that have taken on another identity. So, and of course, there's a whole lesson that goes into it. But during the time of the Romans, right, when Paul was alive, when Christ was walking the earth, and even after, when Paul was alive and many of the apostles were alive, in the time that Rome had full control over Jerusalem and over Israel, the Israelites had been Hellenized. All right. When you go into the book of 1st and 2nd Maccabees in the Apocrypha, you can find that the children of Israel had to leave their own customs, stop being Israelites, like they could no longer call themselves Israelites, could not keep Sabbath days, could not keep any of their laws, could not keep the law of circumcision, which is one of the signets of the covenant between the Israelites and the Most High. They couldn't do any of that, and they had to call themselves Greeks or Grecians. That was a period of Hellenization that the children of Israel went through. So now when you fast forward to the time of Christ and after the time of Paul and the rest of the apostles, many of the Jews or the Israelites were now taking hold of those same Greek and Roman customs and no longer calling themselves Israelites. So when it says that Paul is the apostle to the Gentiles, it only means that he's going out to reach the children of Israel that have left their true identity to go take hold of another nation's customs and to bring them back into the fold. That's all that's talking about. Now, we have entire lessons about that. You can go down our YouTube and our Facebook page, and you can find all of those lessons about the true meaning and understanding of the Gentiles in the New Testament. But I just wanted to give you that quick crash course on that so you can understand that. And this is actually going to become very evident when we read these next couple of precepts about Paul, because if Paul is such an apostle to the Gentiles, the way he speaks would not have me believe that he's talking to other nations of people. And we're going to read that now. Let's read Romans, the 9th chapter. This is one of my favorites, of course, to go to just to prove who Paul was speaking to. And it's funny that this is an epistle to the Romans. Let's see. Bring this up on the stage. All right. So now this is Romans, the 9th chapter and the first verse. We'll just read all of this. All right. Romans 9:1. It says, I say the truth in Christ. I lie not. My conscience also bearing me with witness in the Holy Spirit, that I have great heaviness and continual sorrow in my heart. For I could wish that myself were accursed from Christ for my brethren, my kinsmen according to the flesh. Now, remember what I just taught you about the Hellenization of the Jews and how many of them stepped away from the faith of the Most High and they dipped into the idolatry of the Romans and the Grecians. Well, this is Paul saying that he has a great heaviness and a continual sorrow in his heart because he sees his brothers and sisters going off into these other religions and going into this idolatry. He says that he wished that he could be accursed from Christ, so that way his brethren, his kinsmen according to the flesh, could come into the love of Christ and the understanding of Christ. The 4th verse tells you who he's talking to, or who he's talking about. It says, who are Israelites, to whom pertained the adoption and the glory and the covenants and the giving of the law and the service of God and the promises. Y'all got to understand that this is the common theme throughout the entire Bible. All throughout the Bible, this is the theme. The Israelites are the central focus of the Bible. I want y'all to understand that. Some people will say, now you talk to a Christian and you tell them that, they'll say, well, no, Christ is the central focus. Well, sure, but ain't Christ an Israelite? Don't the book of Hebrews say that he's an Israelite from the tribe of Judah? Don't that what the book of Revelation say? Ain't he an Israelite from the tribe of Judah? So the central focus of this Bible has always been the Israelites, period. And here we are seeing Paul verify that in an epistle, a letter to the church at Rome, which further proves who he's talking to and who he's talking about, and that those Romans are just Hellenized Jews, people that he is bringing back to the truth. All right. And another thing that we need to focus on here, since we're talking about replacement theology, Paul is making it very clear that replacement theology is a farce, and it's a falsehood. Because verse 4 says, who are Israelites, to whom pertaineth the adoption. So the adoption pertains to the Israelites. The glory pertains to the Israelites. The covenants, not the one, not the old, but the new. The old and the new covenant apply to or pertain to the Israelites. And the giving of the law. Remember, the law was only given to the Israelites. And the service of God. Remember, the service of God was given to the priests, the Levites. And the promises were given to the Israelites. All right. And if we continue reading on, verse 5 says, whose are the fathers, and of whom, as concerning the flesh, Christ came. Not and of whom, as concerning the spirit, Christ came. Christ didn't come for spiritual Israelites. So that entire understanding of replacement theology, where now you can be a spiritual Israelite, that goes out the window with this one verse here, because Christ came for the Israelites concerning the flesh. He came for his brethren, his kinsmen, according to the flesh, who was over all, God blessed forever and one. All right. And so we have to understand that's the basis of the entire ministry of Paul. Because I know that a lot of times Christians will try to say that Paul is that they'll use Paul for all of their arguments to say that the other nations can be saved. And a lot of times with their replacement theology understanding, they'll use Paul's writings all the time. But I went specifically to Paul's writings here to show you that Paul ain't talking about what you think he's talking about. And that's what a lot of people have to understand about this Bible. I'm going to take a step away from that precept for just a moment to explain something about the way that the Bible was authored. All right. The Bible was not authored to you. It was not written to you or me. I want you to understand that. The book of Romans was written to the church at Rome in the 1st century AD. Y'all understand that? Not to Johnny come lately. All right. When you go into these prophecies, the prophecies was scribed down so that way they could be carried on through time. But there's a context to these things. So just because when you see the Bible say you and thou, that don't mean it's talking about you. You have to understand the context and see who is really talking to. See, because even when Paul says thou or you, he's not even talking to you. These were letters that he was writing to specific groups of people. So a lot of times when Christians will take these letters and take these things out of the Bible out of context, they'll misappropriate these texts and try to apply it to something that it don't apply to. And that's where a lot of Christians fall short. That's why It's very hard for us to take, people of the Christian faith seriously, because they're just not well studied and they don't use common sense. All right. So I just want y'all to understand that. Like I said, I just want to take that brief second and just kind of make that side note. But we're gonna continue, right? We're gonna continue because now, just because we're talking about Paul, we got some other things that we're gonna talk about too, to refute this replacement theology idea. But just because we're talking about Paul, I want to go to Romans the 15th chapter. All right. When we go into Romans the 15th chapter, see, a lot of times people forget that Paul was an Israelite that kept the law. And before he believed in Christ, he was a Pharisee. And the Pharisees were well studied in the so-called Old Testament, well studied in the prophecy, well studied in the law, and well studied in the writings. All right. So Paul knew what the hell he was talking about. You understand? He knew much more than you and I. So we're going to let him speak for himself. Now, a lot of times people forget that he quoted the Old Testament a lot. And this is one that's actually forgotten quite a bit. Because remember, a lot of times, like if you go into, I did a class about this about maybe 4 weeks ago about Romans the 11th chapter. And Romans the 11th chapter is one of the weapons that a lot of Christians will use to say, oh, the olive branch, the wild olive branches. Oh, the other nations are those wild olive branches coming into the tree. They're going to be able to come into the fold. They use Romans 11 to try to say that the other nations can now become Israelites. They use that for their replacement theology idea. You can check that out on a YouTube page. About 4 weeks ago, Romans the 11th chapter is in the title. I forget exactly what it's titled, but Romans the 11th chapter is in the title. And it breaks all of that down. All right. But just skip a few more chapters ahead in the same letter to the Romans. The 15th chapter is a dagger. I mean, it cuts everything that they can try to bring to you about this idea of a replacement theology. It cuts it off. So let's read it. All right. Pull this up so I can put it on the screen. So Romans the 15th chapter and the 8th verse, it says, now I say that Jesus Christ was a minister of the circumcision for the truth of the Most High, to confirm the promises made unto the fathers, and that the Gentiles might glorify the Most High for his mercy. Now, a Christian can read this, stop right there, and say, see, Christ came as a testament to bring in the new covenant that allows the Gentiles to come in so that they can glorify God for his mercy. Because before, the other nations, they couldn't have a chance. They couldn't have a shot to be the Lord's chosen people, no matter what they did. But glory to God, he sent Jesus Christ to come on down so that the Gentiles can glorify God for his mercy, because now they can come into the fold. That's what they'll do with that. But you have to understand that many people that read this Bible don't actually read this Bible. They'll look at that to make their point. They read this Bible to make their points. They don't read this Bible to understand. So if you stop right there, sure, you can come up with any sort of, breakdown that you want for that. But the problem is that they stop there without any context. If we continue reading, Paul is going to quote something that's going to absolutely destroy the idea that these Gentiles that are spoken of here are the other nations. It's going to destroy that idea. All you got to do is keep reading. So as we continue on in verse 9, it says, as it is written, for this cause I will confess to thee among the Gentiles and sing unto thy name. And again, he saith, rejoice, ye Gentiles, with his people. So now that'll also, once again, you stop right there. Oh my God, a Christian have a field day with that. See, the Gentiles going to be able to rejoice with his people. Who are his people? The Israelites. The Gentiles, the other nations. They're going to break it down like that. They don't know what he's quoting. They don't understand. And that's the reason why you have to have a full understanding of the way this Bible operates. If you don't understand the Old Testament, you are not going to understand the New Testament. I can promise you that. And that's where so many Christians fall short. They fall short because they don't understand the Old Testament. They don't care about the Old Testament because, once again, that cognitive dissonance that we was talking about yesterday, it won't allow them to dig into that Old Testament and understand the God of this Bible. Their Christian pastor never taught them about that. So all of their ideas in their mind are solidified because they don't have an understanding. So now they're going to read that and they're going to be like, oh yeah, this is perfect. I'm going to cut the Hebrew Israelites with this. Well, don't y'all see that Paul said, as it is written? Wouldn't it be good for us to find out where that's written at? Let's keep reading. Verse 12 says, and again, Isaiah saith, there shall be a root of Jesse, and he that shall rise to reign over the Gentiles, in him shall the Gentiles trust. See, now, if only we could go back into the Old Testament and find this prophecy that Isaiah was writing about. Well, luckily for us, we're not dingbats, all right? We got a Bible in front of us. So now we're going to go into the Bible and we're going to find out this prophecy that Paul was quoting. Because in order for us to be able to properly understand what Paul was talking about, we got to understand the scripture that he was quoting. All right? And that's going to be easy. That's going to be easy. All right? Isaiah, the 11th chapter. We're going to start off at the 11th verse. Now, if you're looking on Blue Letter Bible, which is I implore everybody to get the app on their phone. I'm using of course the computer that we're streaming on, but you can get an app on your phone for the Blue Letter Bible. It gives you a lot of good information. You can dive into the language, right? You can go into the transliteration, and there's a lot of tools in here. I mean, I could talk about it forever, but right now we're going to be in the 11th verse. All right. Now, if you see right here, the top of this, it says the restored remnant. Now, even Blue Letter Bible understands that what's about to be spoken about here. Oh, I'm sorry. You can't even see. Hold on. So let me put it up on the screen. The restored remnant. All right. Even the Blue Letter Bible, which is written by mainly Catholics and Christians. I mean, which was put together. These sources and everything was put together by mainly Catholic and Christian scholars. They still understand that the context of this, the same thing that Paul was writing about, is about the restored remnant of Israel. Those that left the faith, that stopped serving the Most High and chased after the idols and the other gods. All right, let's read this. Excuse me. So we're going to start at the 11th verse. It says, and it shall come to pass in that day that the Most High shall set his hand again the second time to recover the remnant of his people. This is talking about the Israelites, which shall be left from Assyria and from Egypt and from Pathros and from Cush and from Elam and from Shinar and from Hamath and from the islands of the sea. This is something you have to understand. Matter of fact, I'm going to continue on and then I'll explain. Verse 12 says, and he shall set up an ensign for the nations. Remember that root of Jesse that Paul was speaking about? This is that ensign. And he shall set up an ensign for the nations and shall assemble the outcasts of Israel and gather together the dispersed of Judah from the four corners of the earth. What you have to understand about this is the fact that when Paul quoted this, it was the same understanding. He's not quoting this and trying to make a new point. You understand? That's why he said, as it is written. All right. And so when we see the context, it says the Most High is going to assemble the outcasts of Israel. Who are the outcasts of Israel? Let's go real quick to Deuteronomy, the 30th chapter. Let's go to Deuteronomy, the 30th chapter real quick. So lucky. I want y'all to understand something. See, a lot of this, you have to be able to understand the prophecy of what would come, what would fall upon the Israelites for you to be able to understand why they were called Gentiles. Let's go down to, you know what? Let's start at the top. Let's start at the top, right? So Deuteronomy, the 30th chapter and the first verse. All right. Y'all got it on the screen. All right, cool. It says, and it shall come to pass when all these things are come upon thee, the blessing and the curse, which I have set before thee, And thou shalt call them to mind among all the nations, whither the Lord thy God hath driven thee, and shalt return unto the Most High thy God, and shalt obey his voice according to all that I command thee this day, thou and thy children, with all thine heart and with all thy soul. Verse 3, that then the Most High thy God will turn thy captivity and have compassion upon thee, and will return and gather thee from all the nations which the Most High thy God have scattered thee. What you have to understand is that in order to really understand why Paul used the term Gentile, is the same reason we see here the term nation. When you go, let's click on it. That's why I was talking about having these sources for the words, the transliterations. So now I'm going to find that word nation. All right. So now look at this term nations. All right. So now look, this is H5971. This term here is I'm. All right. In the ancient or in the Assyrian Hebrew here that you can read is I'm. That term I'm, or up top ha'imyum, that means the people. The people. All right. Why is that important to what we're talking about? The reason why that's important is because that same understanding of nations is applied in the New Testament Greek the same way. So when you see the term Gentile in the New Testament, when you see Paul saying the term Gentile, it's just talking about nations or people. So now when you see the children of Israel, according to Deuteronomy, the 30th chapter, being scattered in and amongst all of those nations, the Lord said that he was going to drive us out of those nations and return us home. So what does that mean? Well, that means that when you go into those nations and you serve their gods and you become a part of their system, you start to identify as that. For instance, call ourselves today African Americans. All right. We have now, many of us, and I'm saying us just to be inclusive, talking about all Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans that live in America. We have taken on an American identity. We're Mexican American. We're African American. We're Native American. And we now have forgotten the morals and the standards that the Most High has given us through these laws, statutes, and commandments that you find in this Bible. And we've now taken hold onto the moral and the standards that America has set for us. We talked about this a little bit yesterday, right? Now we become American. And the perfect example of that is when we ask our brothers and our sisters, when we out at camp and we teaching, and we say, hey, brother, what's your nationality? A lot of them will say, I'm American. And we say, nah, man, no, you an Israelite. You from this tribe. You from that tribe. A lot of times they will say, man, I ain't with all that, man. I'm American. I love my country. Damn. So you hate the Bible, hate the creator, hate the creator that puts you in a position of royalty, according to this Bible. And you love your master, Satan, who operates within America. Well, that's what the Lord prophesied would happen. The children of Israel would go a whoring after the other nations' gods, and they would go and serve them, and they would become them. They would become American. Do you understand? And so the Lord made that prophecy to say that he was going to drive us out of those nations, and he was going to return. When we go back into the book of Isaiah, what was that? The 11th chapter was that? Salakia. Yeah, Isaiah the 11th chapter. When we go back into Isaiah the 11th chapter, we see that the Most High is going to set his hand again a second time to recover the remnant of his people. And it names all of the nations, or several of the nations that we would be in. We would be in Assyria. We'd be in Egypt. We'd be in Pathros. We'd be in Cush, Elam, Shinar, Hamath, and the islands of the sea, which, covers pretty much everywhere, because the scriptures tell us that we'll be scattered to the four corners of the earth. All right. Those things are important when you're trying to understand the context of the Bible. When you're trying to understand why Paul is using the terminology that he's using, and then he goes and he quotes Isaiah the 11th chapter, put the things together, make the context work. All right. And when you understand that, it makes reading the Bible make so much more sense, because now you don't have to come with doctrine. You don't have to create new ideas. Replacement theology, suppressionism, is an idea that somebody came up with to try to justify their belief. And that's why we don't do that in here. Whatever's right is right, and whatever's wrong is wrong. You understand? We would be more than willing to admit if we were proven wrong. But the problem is that we're always proven right, because the things that we believe come directly out of the Bible. We don't use, I talked about this a little bit yesterday as well, we don't use our emotions when we read this Bible. Okay, we're not, the things that we say, we don't say of our own volition. We say these things because this is what thus saith the Lord, whether we like it or not. You think that a lot of us wouldn't, love to indulge in the world and be free? Man, that's what y'all get to do it. You understand? To do whatever the hell you want most of the time with no goddamn repercussions. Well, we don't have that freedom. We don't, like in here, we tell you that we don't have free will. The scriptures tell us something. When Moses presented the laws to the children of Israel, he said, I bear record before heaven and earth. It's actually at the end of Deuteronomy, the 30th chapter. I bear record before heaven and earth, in front of the angels. I set before thee this day life and death. Choose thee therefore life, that thou mayest live. Like Moses didn't give us that choice. He said, this is what you must choose. You understand? And we take that wholeheartedly. We take it to the heart and we say, this is what we must do. Right? So emotions, we got to put those to the side. A lot of us grew up with the nostalgia of Christmas. But when we found out that Jeremiah the 10th chapter tells us that that's a pagan day of worship, we got to put that to the side. No matter how nostalgic it may feel, no matter how sentimental it is for you, no matter how much your kids are going to hate it, they got to stop celebrating that. You're just going to have to put it to the side, because we don't allow emotions to dictate our doctrine. Our doctrine, the scriptures tell us, I give you good doctrine. The Lord gives us good doctrine. And that's the only doctrine that we accept. We don't accept anything outside of that. When you go out, somebody had commented yesterday about a fake Israelite group called the Israel of God. Their emotions run their morality, not the laws of the Bible. Because people like that, I have on recording saying, you can smoke crack and still be a good servant of God. I don't know how in the hell you can come to that conclusion, lest that's just your emotions speaking. That's how you feel. None of this is just how I feel. This is just what the truth is. Replacement theology is just an idea that was curated by somebody that felt like everybody should be saved, because that's what feels right to them. They feel like everybody should be saved because that's what they feel like an all-loving God would have. But unfortunately for them, their feelings don't matter in the eyes of God. And I, luckily, along with many of my brothers and sisters, have come to the understanding of that and have fully submitted to that. You understand? Let's keep knocking these out, man. We got a lot more that we can deal with here before we cut out. Okay, so let's do this real quick. We're gonna go to Psalms the 147th chapter. All right. Psalms the 147th chapter. Pull it up on the screen for y'all. Many of y'all have seen this before, but there's a reason why I'm going to read this. Okay, we're going to be in Psalms 147, and we're going to start at verse 19. It say, "He showeth his word unto Jacob, his statutes and his judgments unto Israel. And when you go into the scriptures, you can read all throughout the first 5 books of the Bible, which many people consider the Ra, all right, which translates to the law or instruction. That was only spoken to the children of Israel. When you go and you read the laws in the Bible, you actually see that it'll say, "Thus saith the Lord of hosts unto the children of Israel," or the Most High will tell Moses, "Speak unto the children of Israel and declare this." All right, it's never to another nation. All right, and so now when we continue reading on and say, "He have not dealt so with any nation, and as for his judgments, they have not known them. Praise ye the Lord." So the other nations have never received the law, which goes to show you that they have never been in covenant with the Most High. Now I got to get out of the Blue Letter app because they don't have the Apocrypha here on the online version. But I gotta go to the book of Second Ezra because I got a precept that goes with this. So I go to for these I go to King James Bible Online if I have to use the computer, but I got an app that I use on my phone. It's called the KJVA Bible. If you got an Android, it's an excellent Bible. And then of course eSword, man, is an excellent app. It's good for your computer and it's good for your mobile device as well. It's called eSword. I'm not sure if they have it on Apple. I would assume they do, but I'm not sure. I have it on Android, and it works probably better than the Blue Letter Bible. You get all your sources in there. You can go into the language, and you do got to pay for. I think it's like $3, and you can have it for life. So it's a worthy investment. Now we're gonna go into Second Ezra, the 3rd chapter. Let me see. I'm gonna pull this up on the screen. So we're gonna start. All right, we're gonna start at verse 34. All right. So it says, "Weigh thou therefore our wickedness now in the balance, and theirs also that dwell the world, and so shall thy name nowhere be found but in Israel." That's the first thing you got to understand. Just make sure that that's clear. And that's the same thing that we just read in Psalms, the 147th chapter. And we're going to get plenty more precepts that say this exact same thing because that's just the theme of the Bible. All right. Let's continue reading. It gets worse. Or, depending on the way you're looking at it, it gets better. The verse 35 says, "Or when was it that they which dwell upon the earth have not sinned in thy sight? Or what people have so kept thy commandments? Thou shalt find that Israel by name hath kept thy precepts, but not the heathen." Now that's extremely important. And when we talk about the replacement theology, why? Because the other nations have done nothing, and I do mean nothing, to deserve the promise that is designed for the children of Israel. And they don't even fit the criteria. Salvation is defined in the book of Luke. And the way that salvation is defined is that Israel would be saved from their enemies. So how could the other nations receive salvation when they are the enemies of Israel and we getting saved from them? That doesn't make any sense, right? But point being, let me reel it back in. That's 2 precepts in a row that show us the Most High has only delivered this word unto Jacob or to the children of Israel, and the other nations have not known them. And Israel by name have kept the precepts, the laws. That's what the term precept means, law, but not the heathen. The other nations, they can't. It's impossible for them. It's impossible for them. They do not keep the law. 1, because it was never delivered to them. But 2, they don't have the spirit to keep the law. And that's evident. Let's go into another precept. We're gonna fire these ones off because these are some that you may or may not have heard several times, but these are excellent just to prove that replacement theology is not biblical. All right. Let's read it. Let me go up so I can. we'll go through these kind of quick. So this is Joel, the 2nd chapter and the 27th verse. It says, "And ye shall know that I am in the midst of Israel, and that I am the Most High, your God, and none else, and my people shall never be ashamed." See, the Lord consistently does this. This ain't the only time that he do it. The Lord consistently does this. He reminds us that he is our God and none else. And that's important because when you talk about replacement theology, you're talking about making the Most High the God of the other nations. The Lord has already, when you go into the book of Deuteronomy, the Lord has already designated these heathen or the other nations to have their own gods. Those gods that they serve, those are for them. They're not real. They dumb idols, but those are their gods, right? But as for us, we have the one and true and living God. And see, replacement theology would have you to believe that God somehow has changed his mind and said, you know what? I'm not only going to be the God of the children of Israel, but now anybody that wants to latch on to me, I will be their God. That's not what the Bible describes. And we can go into Romans the 9th chapter again, because I want to show y'all something. See, because this is not the only time that this sentiment is made in the Bible. It's all throughout. It's a theme. All right. There's a river that flows through this Bible, and within that river is nothing but Israel. That's it. Like I said earlier, a Christian would hear me say that and say, well, you're telling me that the Israelites are the central focus of the Bible, but I believe that Jesus Christ is the central focus. And my response to that would be, well, isn't Jesus Christ an Israelite from the tribe of Judah? So we saying the same thing. You just don't understand what you're talking about, and I do. Let's read Romans the 9th chapter. Let me pull it up on the screen. Now, we read the first few verses earlier, but we're going to skip down a little bit to the 8th verse. All right. Let me put this on the screen. All right, so this is the book of Romans chapter 9 and verse 8. It says, that is, they which are the children of the flesh, these are not the children of God, but the children of the promise are counted for the seed. For this is the word of promise. At this time will I come, and Sarah shall have a son. And not only this, but when Rebekah also had conceived by one, even our father Isaac. Before we continue on reading, I had to read all of that so that way we could get the context. The context here is talking about the difference between Isaac and Ishmael. Real quick, we're going to pause and we're going to go to Galatians, the 4th chapter, because Paul addresses this in another one of his letters to the church of the Galatians, right? So now we're going to go right here to Galatians, the 4th chapter. Remember, we're talking about the difference between the children of the flesh and those that are the children of the free, right? Galatians 4 and 22 says, for it is written that Abraham had two sons, the one by a bondmaid, the other by a free woman. But he who was of the bondwoman was born after the flesh. Remember, that's the context of what we're talking about. Well, who was the one that was born of the bondwoman between Isaac and Ishmael? Well, Ishmael was born of the bondwoman. His mother was Hagar. She was a slave, all right? That was the child that was born after the flesh. And we continue on in the second half of verse 23. It says, but he of the free woman was by promise. This signifies the difference between the children of the flesh, and the children of the promise. All right? The children of the flesh is not talking, see, because a lot of times when we go back, right? I'm going to go back here to Romans the 9th chapter. So now when we go here, a lot of times they'll say, well, the flesh, you too focused on the flesh and bloodline descendancy, because we do. We focus the same way the Most High has designed it. We focus on your bloodline going down back into Jacob and the 12 tribes of Israel. All right. They said, well, you focus too much on that flesh. Look at what this verse say. They don't even realize when they pull this verse that this is actually proving our point, that the children of the flesh is actually the other nations. They have no spirit with the Most High. They just bodies. You understand? And those are the children of the flesh, just like how we saw Ishmael being the child of the flesh, but Isaac was that child of the promise, because down through Isaac came Jacob, his name was later changed to Israel, who was the progenitor of the 12 tribes of Israel. All right, God's chosen people. That's the whole point of what's being spoken about here. And I think that that's very important to note, especially when we're talking about this replacement theology idea, because that idea, for one, is blasphemous, but it's also baseless. There's no way that you can say, according to this Bible, that other nations are now going to become spiritual Israelites, because we see here even Paul, who is who Christians champion, right? Well, Paul himself is saying that the children of the flesh are not the children of God. So when we're talking about anybody outside of the lineage of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, you're not talking about the children of God. And that's important, because now you have to understand who the children of God are. Galatians, the 4th chapter, which is what we just read, proves that Isaac down to Jacob and the 12 tribes, those are the true children of God. So now that refutes the entire idea that somehow the church or the body of the Christian church has now replaced the Israelites, and now they become the chosen people of God. That's not what Paul's saying. Paul don't agree with that. All right, and we're going to continue on. Where was we at? Salakia. Okay, Salakia, verse 11. It says, "For the children being not yet born, neither having done any good or evil, that the purpose of God according to election might stand, not of works, but of him that calleth." And that's what we have to understand. See, this isn't something that you can change with some doctrine. You can't change the word of the Most High with your doctrine because of the way you feel. You can't change what's already written in stone. This is what it is, and it's what it's going to be. Malachi, the 3rd chapter, which is what we read earlier, says that the Most High change not. Therefore, ye sons of Jacob are not consumed. Why is it so important that the Most High says that? The Lord changes not. Therefore, ye sons of Jacob are not consumed. Because the Most High made a promise to the children of Israel. He made a promise to the children of Israel that we was going to be his chosen holy people, and that we were going to become the ruling class on this earth in the kingdom of heaven. Therefore, we are not consumed, although we have committed all sort of acts of idolatry. We have broken that first commandment, thou shalt have no other gods before me, time and time and time and time again, consistently. And that's one thing we good at. And so the Lord say that because he's saying the only reason that y'all not consumed, the only reason I don't get rid of y'all is because I made a promise to y'all. And I'm the Lord, I don't change, so I can't break my promise. That's the importance of that scripture in Malachi 3 and 6. And what you Christians have done with this replacement theology idea is you have now attempted to change the Most High. And that's something that's blasphemous. And the Lord is going to deal with you for that. And you got to repent, because the Lord told you the way that this thing was going to pan out. He told you what was going to happen. And we talked about this a little bit yesterday. It ain't really nothing you could do about it. Y'all call us delusional for what we believe in, but it's what's written in front of us. All we doing is just reciting it back to you. But you call us delusional and say that we crazy. Well, I think that replacement theology is crazy because it has no base or foundation in the Bible at all. I think that it is the emotions of men that realized that they were not the true Israelites and decided, based off their emotions, that there must be some way that they can be saved according to the Bible. So they tried to write it in there. The problem is the Lord told us you cannot add nor diminish aught from this book, because if you do, you will receive all of the plagues written in this book. So that's why I said you better repent. Y'all that are teaching this replacement theology idea, y'all have to repent. Otherwise, you're going to receive all of the plagues that are in this book, because you are adding to this book and you're diminishing from this book when you teach that idea of replacement theology. We're going to continue on, right? I want to get a little bit more here. All right. Let me see something real quick. All right. Let me see something. Is that all I wanted on Romans the 9th chapter? No. Let's continue on. All right. Let's continue on here. We're going to be closing out shortly. All right. So we just read the 11th verse. And now we're going to read verse 12, right? Verse 12 says, "It was said unto her, the elder shall serve the younger. As it is written, Jacob have I loved, but Esau have I hated." And we find that, of course, Paul is quoting the so-called Old Testament. All right. And he's saying, as it is written, because what's been written in stone is there. And that's what Paul had to go off of. All right. Which is once again why it's such a detriment to you if you decide that you're going to ignore the Old Testament. Paul didn't ignore the Old Testament. That's why he understood this thing and you don't. Verse 14 says, "What shall we say then? Is there unrighteousness with God? God forbid." Why do we got to answer that question? Because you in your emotions and in your feelings believe that there must be some unrighteousness with God if he decided that he was going to hate a nation of people. The Bible is explaining to you that the Most High hates Esau. All right. You in your emotions say, well, that can't be true. Replacement theology. Now he ain't got to be Esau no more. He can repent, serve God, and now he not Esau, he actually Israel. That's you and your emotions. You and your emotions have decided to make somebody another nationality. But that's just not what the Bible says. And so now, because Paul is a wise man, he understood that so many people would not like this. So he said, what shall we say then? Is there unrighteousness with God because he hates Esau? God forbid. Verse 15 says, "For he said to Moses, I will have mercy on whom I will have mercy, and I will have compassion on whom I will have compassion. So then it is not of him that willeth, nor of him that runneth, but of God that showeth mercy." See, this is what y'all don't understand. God is the one that gets to decide who is who and what is what. You don't get to decide who's an Israelite. Y'all got to understand that. You don't get to make up who's an Israelite. I think a lot of y'all that teach this idea of replacement theology, you decided to take the Most High's power into your own hands, not realizing the detriment that you have put yourself in. You have made yourself a target for the Most High by teaching this false doctrine. And it's my job to point it out. That's what the book of Ezekiel tell me. All I got to do is I got to point it out. And now it's going to be up to y'all to take these things for what they are. You're either going to believe the truth or you're going to believe a lie. It's up to you to figure out which one is which. See, what we do here is we present all of the evidence. All right. We went through all of the precepts to prove that replacement theology is a farce. It's a falsehood. It's a lie. It's something that has been created based off of small, evil men that are fully indulged in their emotions, cannot accept the fact that only Israel is going to be saved. And they have to come up with this doctrine to try to save themselves and other heathens. And now for you black Christians, you've adopted this idea too. Now you gotta save everybody because of the Stockholm syndrome, right? That America has placed upon you. Now you gotta save everybody else. You're not even worried about saving yourself. The scriptures tell you to work out your own salvation with fear and trembling. You busy trying to save the white man. You trying to, and you understand, and that be the strangest part to me, because Paul calls this thing, this truth that we have, he calls it a gift. And the Lord is trying to deliver this gift unto you. And you saying, nah, I don't want that. I want to give it to them. What's wrong with you, man? That's the problem with us, man. And the Lord said that, these things was going to happen in the latter days. Unfortunately, that's just the way that it is. But, Lord allow, lessons like these will be able to edify brothers and sisters and pull them out of that darkness that is Christianity. All right. We're going to go ahead and end it right there. I just want y'all to make sure. And that's one of the main reasons I wanted to put all of the precepts on the screen. I hope that if you don't have these notes, that you take these notes down, put the precepts in your precept book, and just make sure that you remember these things, because it's important. Like the scriptures say that our warfare is not carnal. All right. You don't see me trying to beat you over the head with this Bible. All right. I'm just trying to deliver the message that the Most High delivered unto us to deliver to the children of Israel. That's it. Replacement theology, that understanding that other nations of people can now become spiritual Israelites to gain salvation, that is nowhere in the Bible. I believe that tonight I've proved that it's not in the Bible. And I pray that brothers and sisters was able to see that. With that being said, I'm going to go ahead and close out. Once again, we on 12416 North 28th Drive. We're right off of the corner of 28th Drive and Cactus. All right. We're in suite number 4. Make sure y'all come tap in with us, man. We got classes every Tuesday through Friday at 7 p.m. And every Saturday we hold our Sabbath service. All right. With that, I appreciate y'all for tuning in. Shalom.